After a brilliant opening ceremony, what are the highlights of the Beijing 2022 Winter Olympics currently taking place in the Chinese capital and surrounding areas? And what challenges are being overcome in this difficult time of the pandemic? And how has China been surging forward in skating, especially speed skating? Before the games started, I sat down with Jan Dijkema, president of the International Skating Union. Welcome to The Point, an opinion show coming to you live from Beijing. I'm Li Xin. Spectacular has been the word most used to describe the opening ceremony of the Beijing 2022 Winter Olympic Games. Some 2,900 athletes entered into China's national stadium with excitement and anticipation. What tone was set for the Winter Games, and how have things changed since Beijing first took the world stage by storm as an Olympic host city in 2008? And what messages are going out this time from an even more confident and experienced China? To explore these ideas and more, I'm pleased to be joined in the studio by Dong Jing, a veteran Chinese sports commentator, formerly an official commentator for the 2008 Summer Olympic Games in Beijing, and Mike Bako, sports editor of dailynational.com, joining us from New York City. Gentlemen, welcome to The Point. So the games have been going on for almost a week now. Mike, let me go to you there. From what you're able to pick up from the media, from where you're able to get your information, what are your observations of the organization for the game so far?
Well, I think right now what you have to think about is just the fact that they're pulling off these games with so much consternation going into it, with daily COVID tests, with positivity rates on the uptick going up. When you think about the hundreds of thousands of tests that they've done and only a few hundred have turned out to be positive, that's on the plus side. On the negative side, some of these athletes have been testing positive, and it's turned some of these events into a bit of chaos in terms of some of their teams not knowing whether they're going to be able to compete, some of the conditions at the quarantine centers that they're being staged at. But in terms of the events going off, in terms of the internal popularity of the new venues, the repurposing of the Olympic Stadium, the Olympic opening ceremony going off, a spectacular opening ceremony, not quite like what was in 2008 because they didn't have 90,000 fans in there. Right now, the games are going off as planned, as best as possible. Right now, they're ticking off all the check marks in terms of how they wanted these to go.
All right, that's Mike, from the American perspective, from outside China perspective. Dong Jing, what are your understanding of the kind of aspects that Mike just mentioned, for instance, the testing, and how disruptive these tests might have been for the organization of the games? What do you know?
Well, very quickly, I'd like to remind that don't forget that the ownership of the Summer Games and the Winter Games are with the International Olympic Committee instead of the host city or country. And we're playing a supportive role in this entire process. And this is an International Olympic Games. And so, I mean, the consistency is there from Tokyo to Beijing. The COVID countermeasure adopted by the playbooks are actually written by the same group of people from Tokyo to Beijing, and they have a lot of consistencies. It's not adopted by China or Beijing only, of course, with China's own situation and China's on-the-ground requirements into consideration. But basically, I think the rules are consistent. Of course, the situation from Delta to Omicron from last summer to this winter has been changing, and also the crowds that you will have to receive in Tokyo and to Beijing are different because most of the athletes back in Tokyo were Summer Games athletes, and now we have a different group of people, and also they are coming from different countries with different measures adopted from season to season now. So I'm not very surprised with some of the complaints or people who struggle to get used to the quarantine and other conditions. But basically, we should bear in mind that all the measures have been approved by an international group of medical experts.
So in terms of the scheduling of the events, the competitions, have they been able to go on as fairly much according to the schedule or disrupted, Dong, once again?
Yeah, I think if you heard the recent press conferences given by the International Committee, I think even the cases inside the closed loop or bubble has been declining and is well under control, and the organizers are pretty happy and content, although they wouldn't, let their measures to get loose anymore. But I think, and also the bubble is playing significantly well, separating the cases from those outside of the closed loop, which was already done by Tokyo remarkably. Even back in Tokyo with more than 400 cases inside the bubble, and a lot of more cases in Tokyo, but they were separated, they were isolated, not related to each other. So I think in this regard, we are seeing something really positive, and at the same time, all the other competitions have been going on smoothly.
Mike, your response?
I mean, very much so. The games have been going on. There has been an interesting incident that went on with some of the skiing events, with the weather being as cold as it is. I believe it was the Belgium and the Swedish ski team did not want to race their events and do their downhills because it was so cold. That's one little hiccup. Again, you're playing with Mother Nature and you're playing with weather. That really can't be accounted for too much. But in terms of that closed loop system, yes, that is keeping people safe. The one thing from an athlete perspective, you lose some of the Olympic pageantry, if you will, of that Olympic village of commingling with other athletes. That's one caveat that they knew that they had to plan for. But really the other thing that our reporting has found, and that what we've heard from different athletes, is that some of their training regimens have been thrown off a bit, not being able to have in between event training, to have some of your stretching, some of the other team activities that in a normal Olympic setting and a world championship setting, you do have those opportunities. So those are things that everyone should have been planning for, but it is a different reality once you actually come to the venue and things are going on. So from our reporting, those are the two little things that athletes have been concerned about in terms of their ability to adjust to this very rigid and very strict system, but it is a very rigid and very